Welcome to the Crunch Time YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be giving my predictions for the AFC North and just giving my insight on the four teams in the division and what I think the records will be. So I'm going to go in the order that the teams went by record last year. So basically I'm going to go from worst to best. So to start off, I'm going to go to Cincinnati Bengals. So we all know the Bengals, they had a really bad year last year. They had the number one overall pick and they took quarterback Joe Burrow. Many hope that will lead to change in the Bengals' whole team. They've not really won, I don't think they've won a playoff game in a long time. Yeah, I know they didn't win one with Andy Dalton, but like 5 years or so they had him. I don't even know if they won one with Carson Palmer. But they just hope that Joe Burrow can help bring this team back to what they used to be, a playoff contender, and maybe they can actually win a few games. So let's get into the records themselves. So in division, I have them losing to the Steelers both times that they play. I just think that the Steelers pass rush is really good. I think they're the best pass rush in the league. And just looking at what the Bengals O-line has done, it looks awful. Like, there was a clip of Joe Burrow in practice. He literally had to throw the ball away because all four rushers on the D-line were right next to him because no one could block. So I think Joe Burrow is going to struggle a lot in the beginning of the year just because of this poor O-line play. And I feel like that's not good for young quarterbacks to have bad offensive lineman. That just really stunts their development. And I also have them losing both games they play against Baltimore this year. I just think Baltimore, they also have a great defense, but who's going to stop Lamar Jackson? They have a great offense this year, and the Bengals still need a lot of work done on the defensive side, especially their linebackers. Like, who's going to contain Lamar Jackson? They have Mark Ingram now, J.K. Dobbins they drafted. They've gotten a few weapons weapons for Lamar to throw to. So he's set with people to throw to. He has a lot of people around him. He has all the tools he could need. So I feel like Lamar could do really good this year. But we're not talking about the Ravens yet. So let's continue to talk about the Bengals. And I have them splitting against the Browns. The Browns, I do think, are going to do good this year. But it's not like they're going to be some like Super Bowl contender. They might make the playoffs or something, but they aren't like some crazy good team. And I think the Bengals match up fairly well against them. Baker Mayfield isn't the greatest QB in the world either, which definitely does help the Bengals. And he makes a lot of bad, ugly mistakes that really aren't excusable. So I have them going 1-5 in the division, and if you go 1-5 in the division, you are probably not going to be doing anything major this season. And they also play the NFC East, which is an interesting division because they have two good teams in the Eagles and Cowboys, but they do have two sleeper teams in the Giants and the Washington football team. So I have them losing to the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I have them beating the Washington football team. I just think that the Redskins aren't a strong team, and Dwayne Haskins, I don't see him doing too well. I think he does improve a lot, and I think he can prove himself as a solid starter, but I don't think he's going to improve himself as a superstar. But they're a team which pass rush. If their defense starts clicking, they can be like a 7-9 team if that defense is top 10. But the Cowboys and Eagles, those are two good teams. We're going to be fighting for playoff spots. The Cowboys have a lot of weapons, and the Bengals secondary is not going to be able to keep up with Gallup, Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb, who they drafted in the first round this year. Trey Waynes, I believe, he got hurt, and he might be out for a majority of the season, if not all of it. And that's a huge loss in the secondary for them. So Dak's going to be able to throw the ball everywhere against them. And next, I believe they play the AFC South. Yes, they do. I have them losing against the Texans. I have them losing against the Titans. I have them beating the Jaguars. And I have them losing to the Colts. So, I know AFC South is actually a really interesting division. Some people may consider it one of the worst in the league, but every team is sort of evenly matched, excluding Jacksonville, and all three teams are going to be likely fighting for playoff spots. So that really does make it an interesting division. So I've been going 1-4 there, and then in their two random AFC games that they play the Dolphins, which is interesting because they aren't a great team either themselves. The Dolphins are interesting because they improved a lot, got a lot of players, but they still aren't a great team. I believe they can beat them, but I have them taking in L there. I just think the Dolphins have a good secondary. They'll be able to lock up Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, which will make it more difficult for Joe Burrow. And they also play the Chargers, who they actually play week 1. I have them winning that game. I think Joe Burrow's first game, he'll be able to win that one. So that means your overall record is 4-12. Many people might think they probably will do better. And looking back at it, there's a lot of winnable games I had them losing. And they could very well go 7-9. I have them actually going as the 15th best team in the AFC. So that's not great, obviously, but I wouldn't be shocked if they do better. Just looking at their schedule, there's a lot of games I have them losing, which are winnable, but it really just depends on the O-line play, because that's really bad here in Cincinnati. Now I'm going to move on to the Cleveland Browns. They're a very interesting team, and they could be fighting for a playoff spot. And people were saying a lot of positive stuff about that team last year, and they really were overhyped. They still had a lot of holes that needed to be filled, and I think they filled a lot of those. Just look at tackle. They took Jedrick Wills with the 10th pick. They luckily had him fall there. I don't know how they got the best tackle in the class at pick 10. Still crazy. And they were also able to get Jack Conklin. So that fixes up their tackle issues. And I mean, they have a pretty solid offensive line. They also have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, which is a really good duo. So their offense looks set. They did lose Joe Schobert to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they do have... I don't think they're going to suffer too much. Hopefully, they can have a few players stand out at that position and take over, fill his role. But they're an overall good team. So let's talk about their schedule. So I'm just going to go week by week. So week 1, they play in Baltimore. I think that's an easy loss. Baltimore was a really good team last year. Best in the regular season. And I just don't think Cleveland's going to be able to beat them in Baltimore. Cleveland did beat Baltimore in one of the regular season games last year. They were one of the only 2 teams to beat them. I think it was Kansas City and Cleveland. Yeah, I believe it was those 2 teams. Then we play the Bengals at home. I gave them a win there. Already talked about it. Think they're better than them. I also have them. Then they play the football team at home. I think they can easily take a win there. The football team, they're not a very strong team. Have a lot of weaknesses, and I feel like the Browns will be able to exploit them. Their secondary isn't great, and Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, hopefully they'll be able to play well enough. They also go on the road to play the Cowboys. 3 of your next 4 games are on the road, and this is a stretch where I think they really will suffer. I have them losing their next 4 games. So I have them losing against the Cowboys in Dallas, have them losing against some Colts at home, and have them losing against the Steelers and Bengals on the road. Those are a lot of tough games if you look at it, but their schedule does get easier from there. Then they play the Raiders and Texans both at home. I gave them 2 wins there. They host the Eagles. I gave them a loss there. But then I have them going on a 3-win streak where they go to Jacksonville and in Tennessee and give them 2 wins there. Beat the Ravens at home. That's another win. I have them going on they have a New York road trip right now at that point of the season. So I have them losing to the Giants in New York, but I have them beating the Jets. And then in the Week 17 finale against the Steelers at home, I have them taking that win. And that would put them as the number 6 seed in the AFC, which means the Cleveland Browns would make the playoffs. I think Cleveland does have a good team. I've already talked about them. Their pass rush is also really good. They have one of the best in Myles Garrett. And as long as he doesn't do anything stupid like he did last year, they're going to be a really good team. The defense really did suffer when they lost him. But I think they have a lot of potential. And if Baker starts playing better, because he was not playing great last year, if he plays better than he was last year and doesn't throw as many picks, this can really be a good team. So now I'm going to move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I believe went 9-7 last year, and that was really good. When your main quarterbacks is Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, that's great. So I'm going to go week by week for them, and actually have them starting in a 3-game winning streak. They play the Giants on the road. I have them getting a win there. They host the Broncos, and I feel like Drew Lock, he's not going to be ready for his defense. That Steelers defense is nasty. And same for Daniel Jones. They're both sophomore quarterbacks. I don't think they'll be ready for those two defenses. Then they play the Texans, and I feel like this is going to be a very low-scoring game. Like, a lot of Steelers games this year, I think are going to be very low-scoring games, under 20 points for both teams, decided by one possession. Like, a lot of 17-10 games, 13-20 games. But I feel like they'll be able to win a lot of these games just because how good their defense is. And they also have Big Ben, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, he did have that injury, which is going to be interesting to see how he comes back from it. But I think he'll be able to do very well. Then we play the Titans, which is where I've been taking their first loss. It's in Tennessee, and I feel like Derrick Henry, he'll be able to do really good. And I also feel like Ryan Tannehill, he's also more of an intermediate passer. It feels like he's not going to suffer as much, as he doesn't rely on the deep game as much as Daniel Jones. So then they play the Eagles and Browns both at home. I feel like they're able to win those two. And that would mean they're 5-1 at this point, which is really good for the Steelers. I think any Steelers fan would take that. I do have them taking 2 losses in a row to the Ravens and Cowboys, where they have to go on the road, play both of those two teams. Those are two teams that are really good. The Ravens, we all know how good they were. They only got better this offseason too, which is a scary part. But the Cowboys are also a really good team. I think that's going to be a close one. But I just feel like Dak has so many weapons this year that they're going to be able to do more than they did last year, even though he had a ton of weapons last year as well. So right now they'd be like 5-3, I believe. Then I have them going on a 4-game win streak. And once you see those 4 games, you'll know why. They play the Bengals, football team, Ravens, and Jaguars in that 4-game run. I don't believe it's in that order, but they only play the Jaguars on the road. Every other game is at home, and I feel like those are a lot of easy wins. The only difficult one there is going to be against the Ravens, but I feel like their defense is going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson, and I feel like this is going to be a game that a lot of teams look to see how to stop Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Steelers have a lot of good linebackers. They have one of the best defenses all throughout, and they're really going to be able to put Lamar Jackson in a lot of tough situations. So then they play the Bills and Bengals on the road, and I have them losing to the Bills, beating the Bengals. I don't think the Bengals are a strong team. And the Steelers are going to be fighting for something at this point in the year, while the Bengals, they're not really going to. They're just going to be trying to get the best draft pick and develop Joe Burrow. Then there's the Colts and Browns to end the season. They host the Colts. I think that's an easy win for them there. Not easy, but I feel like they'll be able to get a lot of picks from Phillip Rivers. I wouldn't be shocked if he has like 3 or 4. But then they also play the Browns on the road. And I believe the Browns will win this one just because they're fighting for a lot more. And the Steelers would be 11-4 at that point. And they already would have their spot clinched as the number 5 seed in the AFC. And that's where they end it. They end The end of the season as the number 5 seed. They go 11-5, which is really good for them. I think with Big Ben coming back, they can be a true contender. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't be shocked if they make it, or even if they make the conference championship, even if they're in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. So now I have to talk about the last team in this division, the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker now. Ravens are a good team, less to talk about. We already know what they are. So I've been winning the first 5 games of the season, I believe. They play the Browns at home. I think that's a winnable game. Go on the road against the Texans. I don't think the Texans are as strong as they were the last 2-3 years. Then they host the Chiefs. This is a really good game, but I do have the Ravens taking this one. I think this Chiefs defense is very overrated. I don't think it's as great as people make it out to be. Then they go to Washington to play them. I think they're able to take a win there, and then I think they can beat the Bengals at home. Then I have them winning 2 of the next 3. They play the Eagles and Colts on the road in 2 of those 3 games, and I think they lose both of those while beating the Steelers in between those 2 games. So that would mean they'd have for 2 losses, actually, at the season at that point, and that would not be too bad at all. Then they play the Patriots in New England. The Patriots are a very good team in Foxborough, but I do think the Ravens are able to beat them, and we saw them beat them last year, so they're able to do a lot against Bill Belichick. Then they play Tennessee at home. I don't really think Tennessee is going to be able to duplicate what they did against them last year. I think Tennessee is a very overrated team. Ryan Tannehill is very overrated. He had a good run, but I don't think he's this crazy good quarterback that people are making him out to be. Then they play the Steelers on the road, host the Cowboys, and go at home, or go to Cleveland to face the Browns. I have them beating the Cowboys, but losing to the Steelers and Browns on the road. I just think that those 2 teams that they're playing, they're going to be fighting for a lot at that point. And especially with them being in their division, that always adds a little bit extra. Then I have them finishing the season on a 3-game win streak. They play the Jaguars, Giants, and Bengals. That's a great stretch to end on, as that boosts a lot of confidence. Like, chemistry goes well, everything goes well for your team. And that would be great to see for them. Just end the season on a 3-game win streak. Any team would love to see that. So, I have the Ravens going 12-4. And that means they'd be at the top of the AFC, clinching the number 1 seed. That does mean I have them above the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going to say what their record is right now. That's going to be for the next episode where we talk about the AFC West. So, thanks for watching, and have a great day. And leave your record predictions for Ravens, Browns, Steelers, and Bengals down below.